Okay, this video is going to be on how to upgrade your front brakes for really cheap. I bought all my stuff at Rock Auto. It cost me less than $200 for premium pads, premium rotors, rebuilt calipers, and brake hoses, the flex hoses. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to show you, this is not going to be a step-by-step, bolt-by-bolt. I'm not going to show you how to jack the car up or take the wheel off or how to paint a caliper. I'm assuming that you got the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thing down really well, okay? And you know how to do regular brakes, because basically there's no modification to the vehicle other than the splash shields. You have to bend those a little bit out of the way because they may hit. But you don't even have to cut them, you just have to bend them a little bit out of the way. If you're going to also do the rear brakes, again, you're going to have to work that shield, that splash shield, because it'll hit the rotor. But other than that, everything bolts right up. It is a bolt-on setup. There's no modification to the knuckle. There's no modification to the caliper. If you ever need a replacement part, it'll all be 2003 Miata with sport suspension. And again, I can't stress that enough. It has to be, the part has to be for with sport suspension. So okay, let's start the video and I'll show you the parts. I'll show you all the little nuances that I think you need to know about, and then we'll go for a road test, and you make the call if you think it's something you want to do to your car, or if you want to keep the stock brakes. That's totally up to you. Or if you want to go with aftermarket, which costs a heck of a lot more. I mean, if you want to go with a Wildwood setup, I guess they start at $1,000 and go up from there. And I just don't like to spend that kind of money if I don't have to. So, all right, let's start the video. Bye. Hi, how's everyone doing today? We're going to do a little brake upgrade for your Miata NA. So that'd be 89 through 96, I believe. The car originally came with 235 millimeter rotors. We're going to go up to 270. Bigger pads, bigger stuff. Basically, everything's going to be off of MB. 2003 NB, Miata. So let's take a look at the original brakes first. This is what you're going to have on the original, on the car originally. This is the 235 millimeter rotor, standard everything, nothing fancy there, just the way the factory built it. So now let's go to the other side. I did a quick put together just to show what it's going to look like. And there it is with the bigger rotor, bigger caliper, bigger brake pads. Now there's one thing before we get too deep into this. You cannot run 14-inch wheels with this brake setup. It will hit. You have to have at least 15 inches. I've got the 16s. You can see right here I got the 16-inch wheels. They're the twisted 16 by 6.5s. And they clear with no problems. So let's take a look and see what we got here for components. These are the rotors right here. This is your stock rotor. And this is the upgraded rotor. This, I went with the Evolution from Power Stop because I want the Geomet coating, because I don't want it to end up looking like that. But here you can clearly see the difference in size. Quite a difference. And by moving that caliper out, it also has more leverage. So all things equal, just the bigger rotor is going to give you better brakes. So that's the rotors. Then we got the pads. These are the upgraded pads from the MB. And these are the stock pads that came originally. You can see these pads are considerably bigger than the stock pads. The one thing you gotta keep in mind is that if you're doing this upgrade, the NA brakes use this little, it's a little clip that goes in this little hole. There's a little hole right here. And it goes in that little itty bitty hole on each side, and it pushes the pad away from the rotor. Well, on the MB, you don't get that. You just put the pads in. You don't have to use that. So that's not a big deal. Here's the calipers. You can clearly see that this caliper is quite a bit bigger. This is the new NB caliper, and this is the original caliper. This has got a 48 millimeter piston. This has a 51 millimeter piston. So it's just slightly bigger. So I don't think there's going to be a problem with having to change master cylinder or anything of that nature. Now, as far as weight goes, if you're tracking this car this might not be the best deal for you because this stuff weighs more. And to go fast, you gotta go light, and you can get bigger brakes. So if you're gonna track the car and you're looking for every second, this might not be your best choice. If you're just gonna street drive it like I do, it's great. Now, I did some power enhancement, as you probably noticed if you were paying attention, that under the hood things are not quite as they were built, but we won't go into that. But let me give you some weights. I did some measuring, took my fish scale, and I weighed things out. Let's see, the rotors, the original rotor here is 8.5 pounds. New rotor is 12.5 pounds. Caliper with bracket and pad is 7 pounds on the original, 12.5 pounds on the upgrade. So your total is going to be, for everything, an additional 7.5 pounds of unsprung weight. Which, like I say, if you're a race car guy and you're going to spend the big bucks and get the aluminum calipers and the two-piece rotors and all that good stuff, more power to you. But a street guy's never going to feel the difference. Now, in my situation, I'm actually going to pretty much break even because I had steel wheels on this car. And now I'm going to aluminum wheels. So the weight I saved on the aluminum wheels is going to offset the weight I added for the brakes. And the number one rule with brakes that we all know is that if your brakes don't stop you, something else will. So let's make the best brakes we can and get this car to stop good. Because like I say, when you up the power, you can get yourself in a little bit of trouble pretty quick. And it's nice to have some extra brakes. But that's basically it. It's all MB stuff, 2003 Miata brake parts. The nice thing about it too is if you ever have a problem, you're out somewhere doing whatever, you can go to AutoZone, you can go to O'Reilly's, you can go to Napa, and you can just buy parts for a 2003 Miata, where I don't think you can go into any of those stores and buy anything for Wildwood or any of the other aftermarket brake manufacturers. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad brakes, they're probably a lot better than this, but this is cheap, easy, and it works. So that's basically it mechanically. Now we're going to have to get into the hydraulics. There's a little bit there we got to talk about, but I don't have the hoses right now. I didn't realize that until I put it together, that the stock Miata hose will not work with this upgraded brake setup that we're doing here. So you have to order a brake hose for a 2003 Miata with sport suspension. Everything has to be with sport suspension. There's standard suspension, which is going to get you a smaller rotor, smaller caliper, bigger than this, but smaller than this. So always remember, sport suspension with sport suspension. And that goes for the brake hoses too. So everything's got to be sport suspension. So we're going to take a little break here, and I'll be back when the UPS truck drops off my hoses, and I'll show you what we got, and I'll show you what the differences are, and then we'll take it for a ride and see how it works. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. All right, here we are a week later. I finally got the hoses. So let's take a look at what we got, and let me show you the difference so we can all agree that you can't use the original hoses. Not that you'd want to use 32-year-old hoses, okay? So you do have the option. You can get the braided steel ones that are all fancy and this, that, and the other thing. But again, they don't come with the, if you look here, there's this little notch, this little, I don't know what they call it, little locator. You get the aftermarket ones that you're just going to get a banjo fitting and you can clock it any way you want. Well, these are set up. There's a hole in the caliper. I'll show you that later when I put the hose on. If you look at this one and you compare it to the original, you can see the clocking is almost 180 degrees difference. So you can't reuse it. Plus, if you look at the other end, look how much shorter. It's about an inch and a half shorter. If you were to use this one and go into a full turn in jounce or rebound, you'd probably tear this hose and just rip it apart, okay? So you need the longer hose and the different clocking. So that's why you need to buy these hoses. These are cheap. I can't believe they made this hose for under $10. I mean, it's pretty nice. Yeah, it came from, I don't know, Thailand or some freaking place, but what are you gonna do these days, you know? I just hope that it holds up. It looks like a very high quality piece. For the money, I'm gonna give it a shot. I mean, these are 10 bucks. If you want to buy the braided ones, they're like 60 bucks. So, I don't know. So that's what we got. I'll get back with you when we get it installed, and I'll show you what we got to do. There's just a couple little things I want to show you, and then we'll go from there. Well, I'll just show you now. Hell. Let me see here. Hell, it's locked. Move the camera around here. Right here. This is that little nub right there, and that goes like that. And then you put your bolt in, you know, yada yada, same old thing. But that keeps it clocked. And then on this end, if you look closely, there is a nut here, but one side is kind of like curved. And in the bracket, there's also a curve, so it only clocks in there one way. You can't, see how that just popped in? You can't get it crooked. It just goes in one way. And then you put your horseshoe clip on, put your knot on. But when you put your line on, just stick it through and start your line first while it's loose so you can wiggle it around a little bit so you don't cross thread. And then that way, once you've got the line started, don't tighten it, just have it on and then put it in place. Snap your horseshoe clip in and then hook up your other side to the caliper and you are good to go. So that's all there is to it. So again, I'm not telling you what to do. You do what you think's right. I like the idea of having factory parts that I know work, that have been tested by Mazda. And if I ever have a problem while I'm out on the road, I know I can go to AutoZone, I can go to Meyer or O'Reilly's or Napa or any of the auto parts stores, and you have a much better chance of actually finding a replacement part or whatever you need. Where with the aftermarket stuff, you got to go online, you got to order it, and you got to sit around and wait for it. And if you're out, you know, gallivanting around somewhere in the country and you have no shipping address, it just becomes a real hassle. Hopefully you don't ever run into that. I mean, brakes are pretty reliable regardless of who makes them, whether it be Wildwood or any of the other aftermarket places. They're all good stuff. So, but I just like the idea of, I know that Mazda tested this stuff. It works. It's good. And it's pretty much bulletproof. So anyways, okay, I'm gonna let you go here for now. I'm gonna do a little segment on the parts with all the part numbers and all that. I'll tag that onto the end so you can see what I ordered. I got all my stuff through Rock Auto. I mean, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I paid, you know, retail price just like everybody else. But it was pretty reasonable. I gotta say, it was pretty reasonable. I was pretty happy with the prices of stuff. And like I say, if your brakes are wore out and you gotta buy this stuff anyway, why would you not go with the bigger stuff? You know, unless you got a 14-inch wheel, there's no reason, because this will not work with a 14-inch wheel. I tried it because I've got the old Daisy wheels, and I tried putting one on, and nah, caliper crashes right into the inside of the wheel. So anyways, okay, I will see you on the other side, and we will show you the parts that I used and where we got. Okay, thank you. All right, here's all the parts that I used. I got all my parts from Rock Auto, ordered them, you know, right, all one-stop shopping. Worked out very well. I'm not affiliated with Rock Auto. I just went in and bought it just like anybody else. So let me just give you a little close-up here. Remember, this is all for 2003 Miata with sport suspension. It has to be with sport suspension. If you get regular stuff, you're going to get the wrong stuff. It's got to be with sport suspension. I can't stress that enough. But these are the things I ordered. You can freeze frame this or whatever if you want. You got to get longer brake lines because they're too short and they're clocked incorrectly. So there's the one side and there's the other side. These are pretty cheap. They're only like $8 a piece. I don't know how they do them so cheap, but there it is. So right, left, brake pads. Again, you don't have to use those brake pads. You can use whatever you like. Same with the rotors, whatever brand you like. Calipers, you got to make sure that they have the bracket, the caliper bracket. You've got to have that caliper bracket, not just a caliper, because the caliper bracket's going to be taller to accommodate the bigger rotor. So there it is. I went with the Evolution rotors because they've got that geomet coating on them, so they stay pretty, because I got wheels that show the calipers. So let me show you one of the wheels. This is the back. You can do the same thing on the rears. Go with the 2003 stuff and you'll end up with bigger rotors, bigger calipers, blah, 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 blah. But the problem with that is you're not going to gain much other than some weight because the rear wheels don't do much when it comes to braking. So there's the front again. You know, I just got to wipe everything down and put the brake hose on, and then I'll take it for a ride, and I'll get back with you and tell you how it feels. I'm not going to do some kind of fancy 60 to 0 measurements or anything like that. It's just going to be seat of the pants feel. How does the car feel? Does it stop better? Does it seem better? Or whatever. But if you got wore out brakes, this is the way to go. If you got to buy all this stuff anyway, you might as well get the bigger size for just a few dollars more. So anyways, all right, I will be back when we're out road testing. Bye. And there's the finished product. We got the bigger rotor in there. Got the bigger wheels. You can see, I don't know if you can see in there or not, but there's plenty of clearance on that caliper. Now I painted those calipers red. They didn't come red like that. And I'm not going to show you how to paint a caliper because, dear God, if you don't know how to use a spray can, you're probably over your head on this whole project anyway. So, and if you still need to know how to paint it, I'm sure there's videos on YouTube that will show you how to paint a caliper. But there it is. Now I'm going to go for a road test and burnish in or bed the brake pads or whatever they call it. Just follow whatever brake pads you got. That usually gives you some kind of a procedure on how to break in your brake pads. And just follow their instructions and you should be fine. But this looks good. With that geomet coating, it should stay pretty and not get all rusty. With my red calipers, and a red car, you know, it should look pretty good. So that's the one side. And this is the other side. See that? That's pretty fancy, ain't it? Huh? Yeah, wait till I go to the car shows with this bad boy. They ain't gonna be looking at the brakes, trust me. You know what they're gonna be looking at. But I don't have to tell you because you just saw it. All right, see ya, bye. All right, you guys ready to go for a little road test? See how this thing performs. I've already bedded in the brakes. So that's all been done, and we'll just take a little ride around the block and see how it runs, how it stops. And yeah, that's a 1.6 liter. Wink, wink. So we'll just take a quick trip around the block, and we'll see what this thing runs and how it stops. Oh, and just for those of you that really are paying attention, that single exhaust pipe in the back is fake. Okay, it's part of the sleeper effect. I have two turn downs and dual exhaust. For those of you who've been paying attention, you know this doesn't have a 1.6 liter. So we'll do a little stop right here when we get straightened out on the road. Hands off the wheel, stop straight as an arrow. No noise, no sound, no problems. If I had to describe it, I would say it feels like you got a whole bunch of brakes you ain't using. Is it a night and day difference from the original? No, I wouldn't say that. But you don't feel like you're hurting for brakes. You got plenty to work with, and you're not tapping into hardly any of it. I mean, like, you just barely lay your big toe on the pedal, and the car comes to a nice smooth stop. It's quiet, no pulsations, no nothing. So. Just the way a car should stop. Anyway, going's a lot more fun than stopping. Like I say, if this brake setup makes the car stop 1 foot shorter, that could be the difference between hitting something and a near miss. And near misses don't cost you nothing. brakes. It's the way to go. It's cheap. It all fits. It all works. This car does not have anti-lock brakes, but I don't think it would make any difference if it had anti-lock brakes, because if you lock it up, the anti-lock brakes are going to kick in. But that's a cheap way to do big brakes. Now, again, you can do the rears using the sport suspension from a 2003 Miata, and you'll end up with bigger rotors, bigger calipers, yada yada. But most of the work's done by the front brakes anyway, so and you don't want rear brake lockup. That sucks. So I think it's pretty well balanced right now. I don't feel like the fronts are locking up or the backs are locking up or anything. It just, the whole car just kind of settles down and stops. And without anti-lock, you got to know how to drive. If you lock up, you lift. Just lift on the brake. It's not a big deal. So that's where we're at. We don't have much use for anti-lock brake out here in Havasu because it never snows here. It's always warm and nice. So there you go. Good luck with your project. Mine turned out really well. I'm pretty happy. All right. Catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.